everybody, my name is Scott Waters. Welcome to Life to Metal, and I am with Trog, and we are here for the top 10
of 1978.
This is part 2 in our series for 78.
We just slept 12 hours. We're ready to go.
2 or 3, I don't know. We'll see how it works out. But this is the last portion, the top 10. The albums that together we decided these deserve to be in a top 10. Not because necessarily they're most important, but just because we like them.
Yeah, it's kind of the result of us kind of bouncing back and forth. And this was a hard one.
Yep.
We had a hard time with this one. Not that we were arguing, but it was a little tougher to get to a consensus on everything.
Yeah, and we did the top 5 we got to pretty easily.
Yeah.
But getting the 5 in order was much harder.
Yeah, and especially the 10. So it took a little bit, but I think you'll be pleased with the results. I really do.
Yep, and here we go.
Yeah,
top 10, starting with Randy. This is one that made the top 10 at the very last second.
And it's a different one, and it's a historical event.
So let's just for now, let's just show the one that's actually in the top 10.
Yeah, which is Ace Frehley. But we got from Kiss that year, we got friggin' 4 albums, solo albums from all 4 members. So what is it? Is it a Kiss 4-record set, or is it 4 albums from Kiss?
This is a historic event that happened. No other band had done this like this.
I can't think of anyone else who did it. Although the Melvins did kind of a parody of it in '91. They did 3
but before that, nobody did this.
No. King Buzz was a huge Kiss fan.
I'm surprised the Beatles never did it.
Yeah. Ace's album, I don't think there's many that would deny. Oh my God, what a slab of hard rock brilliance. Kiss fans almost unanimously name this as their favorite.
And it's funny because I just recently watched some guys on a Kiss video arguing over the best and worst Kiss albums of the 70s.
Yeah.
And one of the guys said this was the worst, and I pretty much agree. But then one of the guys has this as one of the best Kiss albums of the 70s.
You know, I don't cite Gene's as my favorite.
Mine either.
But in a way, I friggin' love Gene's album. Not initially. Initially, I was like, no, Gene's is going to be the heaviest. The most sounding.
And
it totally isn't.
And you start off with that real kind of demonic sounding thing, and then you get into radioactive.
Yeah. And there's like 3 or 4 very Beatles sounding tunes, which now I love. Those are my favorite cuts. But and I gotta wonder if he didn't do that intro on purpose, just because he knew what people were gonna expect. So, you know, Gene being Gene.
I had to have all the guest stars as well.
Oh, this album cost so much money to make. It's
Joe
ridiculous.
Perry's on here, Rick Nielsen's on
Helen
here.
Reddy, Diana Ross.
Cher.
There's so many people. Ian Hunter's on, not Ian Hunter. What's her stupid name? I can't remember her name.
And yeah, he also redoes a Kiss song on here too.
Yes, he redoes See You in Your Dreams. It's it's a remade version from Rock and Roll Over. It's not a ton different, but it sounds more like it belongs on here.
Yep.
And then we got, usually people will say the Paul Stanley album sounds the most like a Kiss album, which is probably true.
True, and I love this album.
Oh God,
matter of fact, I was playing it just today.
It's a great album. I mean, the Ace and the Paul one I always go back to. The Gene one, not quite as much, but there's some of that songwriting. Now on Peter's, I know people mostly hate it. It's R&B and older rock stuff, but
to me,
there's 2 ballads on there that can take me someplace that nothing else can. I mean, he nails it on the couple of love songs that he did on there really, really well, which was Kiss a Girl Goodbye and I Can't Stop the Rain.
I think the thing about this one
I know it's
going to sound trite now because it's now Peter actually has admitted to this. To me, it just sounds rushed and slapped together.
A lot of this stuff was old Chelsea songs and old Lips songs.
And I mean, now, you read that somewhere. Well, that's what I've been saying for years about this record. Matter of fact, go to my website. It was done in 1999. I said the exact same thing about this record. It just sounds kind of slapped together. It's not. You can't sit there and listen to the whole thing with one listen and be satisfied with it.
No, I had to listen to this myriad times to get an appreciation for it.
You know where these songs sound good? On the Best of Kiss.
Yes. Yeah, in conjunction with a bunch of the others, as a compilation, that's a different story.
Yep.
It's a hard one to listen to, and I don't blame most hard rock and metal fans for not digging it.
We did put this one in the top 10. It deserves to be there. It's a solid album, produced by Eddie Kramer, who I think should have gone on to produce the next Kiss record, but for whatever reason they went with Peter Criss's guy.
Yeah.
and we got Dynasty.
and that was what Vinny Poncia. And it continued a growing Kiss tradition of all the members not even playing on the album.
Yeah.
They had Anton Fig on a lot of it, and they had other guys.
And Anton Fig played on this.
Yes, he did.
But can you imagine if they would have actually used Eddie Kramer and actually got the Kiss guys? Says, what good has this album sounded? I don't know why they didn't. Maybe they were mad because he had a hit. He was the only guy who had a hit, and it was a cover, New York Groove.
New York Groove by Hello.
But there's not a bad song on here. I love it.
Have you ever heard the original?
Yes, I have.
Okay, I was gonna say I have it.
Very different.
Yeah, very. And that was.
But I mean, Rip It Out. That's a rocker, man.
The whole thing's killer.
Speed back to my.
The Fractured Mirror is such a cool instrumental.
Yeah, it is. Which he continued on in other parts.
Yeah, 4 parts now
parts, yep.
as it goes.
So anyhow, this is the one. This is the reason that we put them in the top 10. It wasn't the other 3.
Yeah, well, we couldn't really talk about that one without talking about the other 3
and
because they do go together.
This album belongs in the top 10 for me. It's one of the
yeah.
albums I've been listening to since 1978, and I still play it frequently.
You know what? It could just as easily been number 1.
For me, it could have, yeah.
Totally could have been number 1.
I'm a Kiss fanatic. What can I say?
Yeah.
This next one is another one I've been listening to, 78. I love this record.
For some reason,
it's a concept record.
It's one of
Alice Cooper from the inside.
This is a very, very special album to me as well. I thought it was 79, but I guess you're right. It's 78.
Yeah, I think it's 78. Hopefully it is because it's in our top 10. 78. Yep, 1978.
Okay, good.
And this, first of all, the packaging on this thing is wicked cool.
Yeah, why don't we show
and it tells us the whole story of Alice being in this, I guess what he would call an insane asylum, mental institution.
Yeah, it was kind of like, it was almost like a place to recover from alcoholism before they really had him.
Right, but he was in with all these guys that were like had all these different mental disorders.
So it opens up and we've got, we're in the day room with all of the crazies.
And all the crazies that you see in there are the guys that are in the songs.
And apparently they're based on real people.
Right.
So the backside, it's got them breaking out of this asylum.
You got the release papers, yeah.
Yeah. And there's
what's the nurse's name?
Nurse Rosetta.
Nurse Rosetta. Yep.
I won't let her catch me peering down her sweater. And actually on the inside we forgot.
Oh yeah, it's got the little quiet room.
Yeah, there's the quiet room.
Which is the ballad on the album, and probably the only hit from the album. And what a ballad it is!
And it's very, very heartfelt. And I'll tell you what, I've got a little experience in a place like this. And when I spent my own time in a quiet room, I thought this album was cemented into my spirit. I was like, oh my God, Alice Cooper and me were both in the crazy house together. And that's one of the reasons I love this album. Another reason is me and my buddy Chris Alanak, who I talk about a lot in these things. We were listening to this album. We first discovered it and just playing it over and over while we were drawing all the metal logos on his wall in his basement, like we've talked about a million times. But this was one of the records we played. And it was already something I loved, but then when I had my own little experience in this, it just was even more so. Something I just really...
I don't know if you can tell, but if you look really closely in the eyes, you can also see the characters inside the eyes.
Yeah. They kind of reflected.
I remember around this same time, maybe a year or so later, maybe a couple years, I don't remember, but seeing Alice on the with Miss Piggy and all those guys on the
Muppet Show.
Muppet Show, and thinking it was just the coolest thing ever. And I was like, as a kid, in
Alice, and Alice really, Alice has done a lot. He's basically made himself a household name. And he went from being reviled as one of America's criminal rock stars to, now most people love him. I mean, he's a golf pro and he's completely turned his life around and just, what a life Alice Cooper has had.
He's got all those organizations he supports. And,
yep. He's a local boy too, originally from Arizona.
Yeah, if you're ever in Phoenix, his restaurant's really cool.
Yep, I've been there several times. In fact, I stayed there 2 weeks ago with Brian Marshall.
It's just, for guys like me who like all this rock junk that we geek out over, that's a place we're going to geek out over.
And it's a place for sports fans too, because he says it's called where jocks and rock meet.
Yeah,
is what he calls it. They watch sports. There's music playing. There's memorabilia, just like in a Hard Rock Cafe kind of.
This next album sucks. No, I'm just kidding. But a lot of people think that.
Horribly underrated.
I think so too.
Terribly.
I've heard people say that about this record, and I totally disagree. We were in agreement on this one. It belongs in the top 10.
It's an awesome record. Now, okay, this one and its predecessor, Technical Ecstasy, not Ozzy era Sabbath's finest hour by any stretch, no. But I put them together. It's an odd period. Ozzy quit or was fired in between Technical Ecstasy and this one. They had Dave Walker, formerly of Savoy Brown, come in, and I think he was in Fleetwood Mac for a while. He was in with them for a little bit. Then they went to record Never Say Die. Ozzy was back. It was the last one of the classic era. But it's a solid album. It's not like any of the others, but every song on here is a strong song.
And the tour for this album, man, we have a bootleg, both have a bootleg of that
Yep.
show. And that was an awesome tour.
Yeah, and this is the tour where
yeah.
they toured with Van Halen.
Yep.
And which was not necessarily a good thing for Sabbath because
they saw it was.
They saw the future.
They saw the future. Yep.
little did they know there was going to be a massive Sabbath revival in the 90s and beyond.
In the 80s.
Yeah.
In the 80s, there was a huge massive. When Dio joined, they were.
Yes. I'm thinking beyond that, but I love this album. I love it, and I would put it. I'll take
and
Sabbath.
The cover's iconic too.
It is. I'll take Sabbath at their worst over most bands at their best. That's me. I'm a Sabbath fan.
I always loved it. Well, first of all, the title track is just. I think it's just one of their best songs.
Oh yeah.
Then Johnny Blade. I was
Johnny
Blade's
Blade's a killer. If all goes well, the Stone Groove Sabbath tribute. Henry Vasquez is the new drummer for St. Vitus. His band Blood of the Sun wants to do Johnny Blade.
That'd be awesome.
I'm really hoping that's going to
Blood
happen.
of the Sun, so.
Yeah.
So yeah, Black
Hoping
Sabbath.
St. Vitus is going to be on there too.
Well.
Oh, this is number
seven. Number 7. This is
massive.
This is the album I discovered this band on. Not in '78. It was a few years later.
And this album I didn't get into till way later. I was into all their other stuff, but this one.
Judas Priest, Stained Class.
Great album. And unique album.
And I know I've told the story before. I'm going to tell again quickly. I bought this album. I bought actually the Sin After Sin cover. Had Stained Class in it with the Stained Class picture sleeve. And so first song I heard by Judas Priest ever, Exciter. And it was like, boom, jaw hit the floor.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
Yeah. My first Priest song was never, You Got Nothing Coming. Just heard it on the radio, loved it. I was like, wait, that's Hot Blooded. No, it's not. But then, once I get into that one, all the rest followed.
So, I love this record. White Hot Red Heat, Better By You, Better Me, Stained Class, Invader, Saints in Hell. Oh man, Fates Warning does a great cover of Saints in Hell. Savage, Beyond the Realms of Death, one of their most iconic songs.
Death is a killer song.
And probably the most least known song on here, Hero's End.
Hero's End's a great one. Better By You, Better Than Me was a Spooky Tooth song. That was one that they got taken to court over. There was some kind of suicide case where a kid had committed suicide, and they were trying to say that Better By You, Better Than Me was...
and that's the picture sleeve.
That's mine, right?
Yeah, that's yours.
Yeah, I forget that one has a picture sleeve.
Les
Binks, the most unknown Priest drummer, but he was so present for so long.
Back when Randy started collecting records or vinyl again, I was already into collecting vinyl, and I bought this record and I showed it to him and I said, it has a picture sleeve. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And he was like, I never knew that had a picture sleeve.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of them I did. Well, remember Metal on Metal?
Yeah.
You didn't know that one had a picture sleeve, and I had it. And like, damn it, now I gotta find another one.
And so I had to find one with a picture sleeve, but that's the way collectors are. And it's weird. I guess only the first pressing must have had the picture sleeve because there's so many out there without it.
Yeah.
It's not like people cut this apart and put it on their walls, you know.
It's not that great.
Yeah.
But again, that song I was talking about, Priest was on trial for it. Halford had to testify. The thing I never got, and this is on the Rabbit Trail, I understand, but the song wasn't even written by Priest. Right. It was written by Spooky Tooth. It wasn't even their song, so I don't know. It's weirdo. I mean, the witch hunts in the 80s against heavy metal were legendary at this point. But they were always looking. They were always looking to blame it on something, I guess.
Another one we didn't have a problem putting in the top 10. Just had to be there.
Oh yeah.
Pretty much an end of an era for their studio albums, anyhow.
It's the album that broke me into this band.
Ladies and gentlemen,
never looked back.
UFO
Obsession. Another killer cover. I believe it's Hypnosis that did this one, or was it Cream? It's just UFO had bizarro album covers, just like the Scorpions did. UFOs weren't always quite as sexual. Oh, come on, who did this? I
was sure that was Hypnotic too, but
Hypnosis.
Yep.
Yeah, it's Hypnosis. Love them. It's got, Michael Schenker looking normal amidst pictures of the rest of the guys that have like ball bearings floating in their eye sockets and noses and mouth. It's just bizarre.
And was that not like a foretelling of the future or something like that? Like the one guy who didn't stay in UFO was
Schenker.
Yep.
He did come back, mid-90s, he did come back and did some good, 2 or 3 great albums with them, and then left again. But UFO, talk about turbulent. I mean, jeez. You got strong personalities, you also got personalities that are heavily into alcohol and drug use.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a recipe for disaster, but wow, that tension produced some really great music.
I mean, again, I mentioned Aerosmith a lot, but wasn't that the same kind of deal? I mean, you had
It was.
a whole lot of tension, a whole lot of drugs, a whole lot of alcohol, but it created some great music.
Yeah, the problem is it's stressful on humans, but it does produce some great art. And what's on here that isn't good? Nothing. Only You Can Rock Me, Pack It Up and Go, Arbory Hill's a great instrumental by Schenker, Ain't No Baby, great one. Looking Out for Number One, Hot and Ready, that was the one that just hooked me. It was, and Cherry, I love Cherry, great song. You Don't
What
Fool
was
Me.
about the 70s and Cherry? There was like a million songs with the word name Cherry or the word Cherry in it.
Everyone liked cherries,
I guess.
I guess. Some kind of cherries.
All right, let's see. So where are we at here? We're at number
6?
6.
5? Oh, I love this one.
And this one dropped down on our list. This was at number 3 for a while.
Only because I had to make an issue of something.
That's okay.
I prefer this album, believe me. This could even be number 1 for me. Love this record.
And we talked about it before, live albums in the 70s, but
Tokyo Tapes.
this is the reason that the other Scorpions album we showed in the other part didn't make the top 10 because we put this one in there.
This is one of those live albums that it just overshadowed all its studio counterparts. And the 70s were famous for that.
And there's one thing that, for me, I always kind of, I thought bogged down the album is that little rock and roll.
Yeah. They did, Hound Dog and
Long Tall Sally. It kind of just, yeah.
I think it's because they're German. I think it was more esoteric for them to do that. But I've heard so many bands do songs like that. It's just kind of boring at this point. But damn, the rest of it, forget it.
Oh my goodness.
Tour de
Julia Roth
force
on here?
Yes, amazing. This is the reason I got into the early Scorpions. This is the first time I'd ever heard Scorpions pre, Blackout and Animal Magnetism.
Right.
And Love Drive.
The more, I don't say poppy, it was more commercial at the time.
A friend of mine named Matt Chassé, who I met in high school, he was a senior, I was a sophomore. He turned me on to this and the early UFO, and just totally got me
Pictured
into
Life,
it.
Backstage Queen, Polar Nights.
Definitive version of We'll Burn the Sky on here, and In Trance.
In Trance.
My 2 favorites. Those completely.
Oh, and Fly to the Rainbow.
Yep.
Great. Speed's Coming, He's a Woman, She's a Man, Steam Rock Fever, Dark Lady.
Yeah, All Night Long is on here. I've never heard a studio version of All Night Long. It's a live only that I can that I found so far. I've never heard a studio
And
version.
then what a classic shot in the front cover. You got Rudolph Schenker up there, bending in half, basically.
Yeah, like he's bending, doing a backbone, and he's like sucking off Francis Buchholz on bass. Like, okay. But I've got another cover of this. It's a Japanese import, and it's got
the silver thing in there.
Yeah, it's got a rose and it's got a scorpion on it with some, like he just stung the rose and it's got blood. That cover I prefer. It's just the one I'm most used to. All right, we're getting there.
We are.
All right, here's kind of an odd one.
Number 6.
Oh yeah, man, this track list is totally different.
Yeah.
Power Age by AC/DC.
I think it's the forgotten.
My absolute favorite AC/DC album, but I didn't get into it until I got into the other ones. It's really just weird. It's same thing with Stained Class. I don't know what it was. Just very weird.
This is the forgotten album from the Bon Scott era. People just don't talk about this one much.
Well, the most well-known cut on here is probably Riff Raff.
Riff Raff, and that's not like a radio staple like like
maybe
Hold
Rock
On
and Roll,
Rosie
maybe
was.
Rock and Roll Damnation. But I'll tell you what, I think this album blows them all away. There's not an AC/DC album I like better of the Bon Scott years than this one.
And it's not overplayed on the radio. So, and you've got, Sin City's a classic song.
That one too. And I've got a Scott's got the American one, and I must have a European one because it's got a totally different track list.
Yeah, it's got different songs.
Completely. Rock and Roll Damnation isn't even on here.
Yeah.
And it's got an extra track called Cold Hearted Man, which appeared as a B-side on one of the singles for this, which is a great song. It's another song I love by AC/DC. It's just a great album. I don't know what else to say about it.
What a classic cover.
Totally.
I mean,
and the back cover kind of looks like what was coming on Highway to Hell. This one on Highway to Hell, they really, they were at the top of their game songwriting-wise, and I think, had Bon not died, it would have been interesting to see where they had gone.
This cover was kind of reminded me of, and another album that came out the same year was Weekend Warriors, just because of you got the gun and you got.
It always reminded me of Scream Dream because
or Scream Dream, yeah.
Yeah, and I always used to see them together in the same store, and I was like, look at all these cool album covers that they did back then, just iconic stuff. And it doesn't even have the classic AC/DC logo. It's just a different feel all around. But what a great album! If you haven't heard Power Age. if you have not heard Power Age and you like AC/DC at all,
And I think
please go pick it up.
Twisted Sister did a really good cover of Sin City.
That's right. They did.
Alrighty then, where are we at here? We are on number
3.
3. Already. Wow.
This is the album.
This is the album that we
had a little bit of a disagreement about. Originally, it was much further down the list. I suggested, it was completely out of character for me. I was going more towards the historical significance. I said, I really think we ought to put this one number 1.
Which we did in past ones. I fought it.
First Van Halen.
Yeah. And I do love this album. I think it's a great album. I remember hearing it for the first time and thinking...
Blew me out of the water, man. I don't think I heard it till 80, but still.
And I just remember hearing Eruption for the first time and it's like, what the heck is he doing there?
Yep. I mean, this is a game changer, I think, to the extent that Metallica was a game changer in '83. How many Guitar Heroes were birthed? The whole Guitar God revolution was birthed from this album.
And not only that, but the entire LA glam scene. I mean,
it exploded.
The look here, the showmanship, and the guitar antics was all, standard.
Yeah, and the whole party rock kind of thing. And hair metal grew out of it too, which I hate party rock and I hate hair metal, except for a few things as a general rule. But Van Halen, you just can't deny that they did what they did so friggin' well.
And I gotta admit, I don't listen to this album very often anymore. I just think it's been overplayed.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we're sick to death of it.
Which is the reason I didn't want to put it as number 1, because these lists are our favorites, ones that we grew up with and loved. And I did grow up and love this one, but the two that are going to come after this are ones that I still love and still play.
It's a weird balance we're trying to strike between what Scott loved, what I loved, what we loved at the same time, and what just at large we think was popularity.
So honestly, this could have been number 1. I mean, we put AC/DC Back in Black as number 1 in one of our lists, and
something like that. It's all right.
It's a great album. It's a classic.
It is.
Classic cover with the shots. Classic back cover.
Yep. And produced by Ted Templeman.
Ted Templeman, that's right. Who went on to produce...
he produced all their stuff up until like 84.
And then in 85, he produced Aerosmith Done with Mirrors.
Right. Yes, that's right. He did. And Gene Simmons was the guy who discovered him.
Yep.
Pretty much.
Yep.
And I've got their demos that he produced, which are interesting.
All right, and these last two, so yours is up.
Yeah.
We fought back and forth which one should be the number 1.
That was for 85. We're good.
Both these albums could have been number 1 for either one of us.
Yeah.
Especially for me, I discovered them around the same time.
I got into this one right about 1980.
I got this in 78. A neighbor was playing this record.
That's the same way I heard it. There was a teenage guy down the street who was blasting it out his windows with his stereo.
Yep. I
was like, holy shit, what's that? I like it. And I finally figured out what it was. But wow, what a great record. I mean, one of the great live records of the 70s. I prefer this to the 4 studio ones that preceded it. Or wait, which came first, Gonzo or Weekend Warriors? It was this, wasn't it?
Gonzo became 4 Weekend Warriors, but they both released the same year.
Okay, so I prefer this over Ted Nugent and Free For All and Cat Scratch Fever because he's got stuff on here that wasn't even on those albums.
And it captured an energy
that
Ted Nugent could never capture in the studio.
He couldn't.
And I know a lot of live albums are doctored, Kiss Alive,
and this one probably was too.
That one was not.
It wasn't, okay.
That one was a compilation of tracks played throughout the country, and you can hear it. He's talking on. I mean, the banter on here is as amusing as the music.
It totally is. Second only probably is like Twisted Sister.
If anybody wants to get mellow.
So he's got stuff from Nugent's solo records, but he's also got stuff from Amboy Dukes records.
And stuff he never released before.
Yeah, and stuff he hasn't done since. Gonzo and Yank Me Crank Me have never been done studio versions. And that's one of the things I dug about Ted. He just a couple years after this, he did a full live album that was all new music.
That's got a gatefold too, some great live shots inside.
It does.
Yeah, I don't know. It's it's not virtuoso guitar playing. It's manic guitar playing.
It is.
It's wild. It's wild.
Yeah, and the rest of the band isn't even represented on here.
and this was the end of an era for that band because that band changed after here.
They did, because this was the original with Derek St. Holmes, Rob Grange, and Cliff Davies.
And Cliff Davies was the only guy who remained on through 1980.
Drummer, right?
Yep.
Okay. So he did go into the next version.
So he went on to the next generation. He actually started producing for Nugent. He produced Scream Dream. and that was the last album he worked with Nugent on.
Loved Scream Dream, and everything changed for Nugent after that. Everything got very different.
He was the alpha male, and unfortunately, Derek St. Holmes was becoming a little too popular. And
Derek St. Holmes still kicking. Him and Brad Whitford just got back together.
Yeah,
again
did
recently.
a second album, and they still do songs together. I mean, you still see Derek St. Holmes touring with Nugent here and there and doing shows with him, and even singing on his records, so new records. So, all right, number one. This is an easy one for me. One of the greatest live albums of all time.
Yep, for sure.
This one definitely was doctored. Thin Lizzy, Live and Dangerous.
Wow, look at the cover, man. I remember seeing that cover going, holy shit, I would not want to mess with Phil Lynott.
This is 78.
Yep.
I mean, other than Judas Priest, who looked like that? Everybody in the 80s.
Yeah. I mean, Lizzy had the machismo and the bravado more than most. That was what was great about Phil Lynott. He was a tough guy, but he was a sensitive guy, poet too, and all mixed together. I mean, Thin Lizzy were one of the hardest partying badass bands on the road. Second, maybe to UFO, or probably about the same.
Which unfortunately killed him, but
right. So maybe not second to UFO, since most of those guys are still alive. But
and it's just the album cover, I loved it.
Twin Guitar Attack.
I can remember as a kid listening to this album and just spending the entire time staring at the live photos.
That's what was great about albums in the 70s and 80s.
And they had these cool picture sleeves.
Yeah, more live cuts, more live pictures of them. Just double guitar attack of Scott Gorham and Brian Robertson. Right. So evident here. One of the best dual guitar teams in rock, bar none.
There's a Philo right there. And I just always thought this guy looked so badass.
Yep.
And I don't know, I actually may have shared this before, but
Scott Gorham,
I took this album to my parents and I said, I want my hair to look just like his. And my mom said, when you're 18 and move out of my house, you can grow your hair any way you want to. So guess what? When I was 18 and moved out of her house, I grew my hair just like that.
And there's another reason for you not to do what you were talking about doing earlier.
Just
saying.
I don't know. There's just not a bad song on here. There's
no, it's a great album.
It opens up with Jailbreak, which is one of their most iconic songs. Emerald, which is one of their heaviest songs.
My favorite pairing on here, and my favorite versions of these two songs are Cowboy Song into Boys Are Back in Town. So it's such a great segue, and the songs just they just belong together, and the way that it kicks in is just like, ugh.
And I also think the same thing about Rosalie into Cowgirl Song.
Yes. Wow, I've got chills. If I'm going to play some live Lizzy on my radio show, I'm probably going to play those two cuts back to back.
And I've always loved Sha-La-La. It sounds like such a corny, like flowery song, but it's a heavy rocker.
Yeah, it totally is.
And it's a
Sha-La-La-La, and I can't sing like that.
And there's another band. There's another thing. Who was doing that double bass like that in '78? Motorhead? Overkill?
Maybe.
And that Overkill was 78, right?
78 or 77, I can't remember.
And Motorhead gets all the credit for doing that double bass thing, but Brian Downey was doing it.
Brian Downey is a severely overlooked and underrated drummer, one of the best of the genre.
Not only here, but he did it on the song Bad Reputation. He's got that same. Yep. Matter of fact, during the tours, Sha-La-La and Bad Reputation were the ones that they always included the drum solo in, depending on. Yep. Right. Because I've got other shows that has Bad Reputation with the drum solo in it.
And they get a great song here called Are You Ready? There is a studio version that exists, but it's more like a demo. Great kick-ass song.
And then it's got a killer version of The Rocker.
Yep.
Is
The Rocker on this one?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that's right. Because they did another live album that was kind of like their swan song, and they had a version of The Rocker where, like, almost every guitar player that had ever been in Lizzy came.
And
I think
Lemmy
the only
too,
missing
right?
one was Snowy.
Wasn't Lemmy on that too, if I'm not mistaken?
I don't know. Maybe he was. Could have been.
Anyhow.
But,
Number one, Thin Lizzy, Live and Dangerous. One of the greatest double live albums of all times. Like we said, 70s was huge for live albums.
If you're not familiar with 70s era Lizzy and you want to know a place to start, that's probably a good place to start.
And I hear people say all the time, I don't like live albums. I don't know how you can, but...
I don't like live albums now. Mostly, I haven't heard a live album that I've really dug. I think Halford's Live Insurrection was the last one I really was impressed with. In that way.
The live albums I like now are all the old ones are coming out with, like all these classics from the 70s are coming out with now that are actually live.
What was great about live albums in the 70s is they were doubles and they were longer than your typical album, and it almost like took you on a journey, like you were actually at the show.
Yeah. And it captured an energy that you didn't capture on the live. And it seemed, and the 70s bands got heavier live.
Oh, they totally did. Totally.
Not sloppier,
No,
heavier.
just there was more of an edge and just something about it, and it's the energy of the live performance that you just. I mean, maybe some bands can whip it up in the studio, but for the most part, it's hard to do.
You just don't have that feeding off the crowd that they had there.
Typically, does someone say, "Oh, I'm nervous to go on and do my show," or "I'm nervous to go into the studio"? I mean, usually you're going to be a little bit, heightened when you're going to do a live show. Not.
And once again, the banter on here is entertaining as well.
Great stuff. Phil was a really neat, great front man.
A little bit crass at once in a while, but so was just like Nugent. So. Any of the girls
rock
want a
and
little
roll
more.
was never really a family affair.
Any of the girls want a little more Irish in them. Yeah.
That was on the other one. That was on Life.
Oh, that's right.
That was on Life.
Yeah.
You're right.
Anyhow,
I
that's
think
it.
it was Emerald. Yeah.
Yep, that was our top 10 1978s. What we plan on doing when we have time next is 1985.
1985 is going to be another ball buster.
We're going to do a top 50.
It took us months to get down to 50. I think, how many were there originally? Like 150?
150.
It's a ball buster, and it's a little bit tougher for me. Once we're getting further into the 80s, I'm not as well versed in a lot of the metal because a lot of it was thrash, and that I didn't go really in that direction as much as Scott did for sure. So, and you do those thrash compilations now anyway.
Yep.
So we'll talk about the stuff I knew for sure, and there was still plenty of classic metal going on at the time too.
And one other thing that we're thinking about doing, maybe you guys let us know what you think in the comments below, as we're thinking about doing a couple of Kiss videos, 1970s videos, our top 10, putting them in order, him in his order, mine in my order, and kind of just...
Like favorite to least favorite,
Yeah.
of the 70s stuff.
Yeah, 70s stuff, yeah. So, anyhow, that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. Thumbs up. Like I said before, I'll leave a link below for Stone Grooves. Just go to his website. It'll take you to all the things that Stone Grooves is involved in.
We do a lot
radio,
of
record company,
merchandise, digital, and CD and vinyl soon.
I get a lot of people asking me where you can find Ultimatum shirts. Stone Grooves.
Yeah, we're doing special line Ultimatum shirts. We've got some special releases we're doing. Us and Rocks Records are doing combined. We're going to re-release the Till the End EP and a couple of special single EPs also going to be coming out on limited edition CDs really soon.
Yeah. So anyhow, lots of stuff coming up. Thanks for watching. God bless. Stay strong.
Fly like an eagle.
Go Flyers.
Go